Call this meeting to order 5 o'clock. Budget meeting on May 11th, 2023. And we'll do a roll call. And it's not the way.
They can just go around, they can go around the table.
Like not there.
Mayor, they can just go around the table and introduce themselves.
Okay, yeah, that's better. Let's just go around the table and introduce ourselves. Alan?
Aaron Davis, Aaron, State Councilor, from the sheriff. Mary Kenyon, budget member.
Kimberly Ritter, City Council. Sherry Kinley, Mayor.
David Smith, budget.
Stephanie Smith, Councilor.
Adam Hand, budget committee.
Tom Moore, budget committee.
Mark Rush, budget committee.
Okay, so citizens' comments? They're making me coffee. No comments? All right, election of chairperson to budget committee. Sorry, this is my first time here.
Just
Run it.
do nominations. And
Nominations? Is there
Yeah.
any nomination?
I would like to nominate.
I like that. No rest for you.
It's all about you. All in favor for Linda Sherritt? Aye. Opposed? Welcome.
Oh, yeah, okay, well, this one's gonna be easy. So I guess I'm gonna turn it over to Melissa for budget orientation, budget message, and budget overview.
thank you, Chairperson. Welcome to the 23-24 Lakeside Budget Orientation and Message. I'm going to do a quick slide PowerPoint. I didn't want to get too in depth, but I want to do an overview real quick. It shouldn't take more than 5-7 minutes, maybe longer, just to give you some insight. And then I will let you, Chairperson, take over. I'll have a couple of housekeeping things. Nobody seems to be on Zoom, so I was going to say we're going to turn Zoom off and start the meeting again, like a whole different meeting for those, but they're not on. And then just a couple of quick changes that have been made if the budget committee approves that I would like to impose in the budget that didn't get put out with your packet. So away we'll go. Just a quick talk about how the process starts. A lot of people think that this just all comes together at the last minute and somehow in May you get thrown this book. It's not how it goes. Usually starts in January. I actually start looking at the budget, start seeing where we are, start looking at our expenditures, start looking at the funds, start talking to the directors and seeing what we're going to be doing for next year, what's happened this year, seeing some trends. Then usually in March, I hit up the accountant because we all know tax time's in April. And so I put a bug in her ear that we need to start looking at this. And she starts putting together some numbers. And so we can get by the end of March or end of February numbers so I can start forecasting. And then of course you have your budget meetings. May budget has to be adopted by July 1st, which means in June sometime the council will approve and adopt the budget. After that, we go into implementation and we watch as we spend our money and as the case may be. And that's the budget cycle. So really for staff, it kind of is almost all year round, really. I mean, we're looking at this all year round and working on the budget. It doesn't end. Oops, and we monitor and adjust. Who's involved? As you all sit around this table and see each other, usually there's a budget officer who's the city manager or administrator. They get help from department staff. You have a budget committee that consists of the city council and an equal number of qualified electors that state code. If a city doesn't have or can't get the same number of qualified electors, they have to show that they tried, which usually means you advertised. And I threw this in, this is from the Oregon Local Budgeting Manual. It's their definition of a budget, and I think it's pretty, the overall theme for what I've been preaching this last year and a half. So the definition of a budget is a financial plan containing estimates of revenues and expenditures for a single fiscal year or biennial budget period. Budgeting allows a local government to evaluate its needs in light of the revenue sources available to meet those needs. A complete budget justifies the imposition of property taxes and the making of the appropriations that give the government its authority to spend public money. And I just think that's key, because I don't think it was ever anticipated that a government would run without them. And I think the fact that Lakeside does is wonderful. I think it's great. But again, you've all heard me say the time has come. So on we go. So our revenue, where does our money come from? How do we get money? If we're not doing property taxes, where are we getting our money? What runs the city? Well, we have, and I'm going to mainly focus on general fund, just so you all know. I'm going to stop my presentation at general fund, because general fund is it's your rain. It's the money that comes in that's unrestricted for the most part and can go into any fund. It also is your overreaching fund that can fund your other funds. It can subsidize. So it is what runs your city. It's your paying the bills, utilities, you know, your coffee you make, you know, everything down to the toilet paper. So you have your general fund, which can pour into all the other funds. So I have these buckets of other funds. And I know out there, I've seen it on Facebook, people have this funny idea of how it works. So I'm going to try to explain it. Each of those buckets has its own spigot. And once that spigot goes into that bucket, the ones directly to that bucket, that money is called restricted funds. It can't go anywhere else unless it came from the general fund as unrestricted money. So for instance, you have streets. Our streets are funded with its own spigot by highway use tax. The street bucket, if it gets fully funded or it has a lot of money, we can't pour that bucket into any of those other buckets. We can't do that. So for instance, if your sewer or your wastewater has all the money, you cannot take that bucket and pour it into community development. You cannot pour it into streets. There is some exceptions. And this is where it gets funky and really detailed oriented, but you can pour your wastewater money into capital reserve, because that's like a savings account for capital projects you're doing for your wastewater fund. You can have capital reserves for numerous funds, but that's how that works. SDCs are very restricted funds that can only be used on certain circumstances. So that's how it works. So any questions about that? Okay. So our general fund, our sources of revenue for the city, we get, this is the total, and I put every minutia detail in there of where we get our money. So you get your transient tax revenue, which is the 30% state dictated from your TLT dollars. You get state shared revenues from alcohol, cigarette, and marijuana, and those are the revenues the state collects a tax on when somebody buys alcohol, cigarette, or marijuana. There's a tax. The state proportions that back out to the cities, and we get a portion of that. They have various ways of identifying how they do that, and I put that in the budget message if you want more detail. They have we have franchise fees that we get from cable and CenturyLink and PUD. And that's to use the infrastructure, our roads for this, so they can put their infrastructure there, and we get money from that. We get rent from our hangars out at the airport and the senior building, although not much. We get miscellaneous revenue. That line item is basically been kind of dedicated now to just kind of doing holiday expenditures for like trunk or treat, or any, you know, if holiday in December comes up. We get interest. So any reserve rollover money we have, because obviously we're not spending down every category, every line item. You don't ever want to do that. So there is some money that rolls over and it sits in an account. And as we go through the year, we get interest, and that interest is shared across all the funds. So there's a portion of shared interest. And we get license and fees. Business and alcohol licenses are out of this fund, the applications. Now, one thing we're doing that's going to have to change, that I'm not kind of changing yet because that's still a method of method of revenue for us is we put our sewer. Sorry, someone wanted to be admitted. It threw me off. We put our sewer application revenue in the general fund, which is okay. It's not going to get us in trouble. It's not a bad audit thing. It's just in the future, it probably really should go into the sewer fund. But for now, we can get away with it because, you know, our city utility billing, she can work on other things and it kind of can go for that. So it's not a problem. It's not something we're doing wrong. It's just, if we ever had money in the future, I would put that back over in the sewer. So when you add all that up for the year, this is what you're running the city off of. You're running the city off $170,000. That's it. That's all the revenue you get. Now, if you think about that, you read the budget a little bit, you'll understand that that's going to be harder to do in the future. So this is a diagram of our general fund revenue from 2020 to this proposed budget of 2023-24, and you can show the trend going down. The 2021 is up higher because that's when all the TLT dollars were going straight into the general fund, which we all know now was not correct. And so it spiked that year. That's when you went from, I think you were getting 63 and the next year you got like, I don't know, 80 or 100,000. So that's that spike. The spike in the 2023 budget that you see it went up a little bit, the budget proposed for this year, it's gone up, is because I put the 25,000 from the street unrestricted Central Lincoln, put it back into general fund to make the properties payment. So that's going to show a little spike because we're not dealing with millions, we're dealing with hundreds of thousands. It looks like a little big, it looks big, but these are small amounts that are showing the spike. So you can see the trend. This is just another way of showing these are our state shared revenues and utility franchise fees, by which fees they are. So I know it's really hard to read, but for instance, marijuana is the yellow down at the bottom. You can show the trending down. Alcohol tax, you see it kind of trending down. It's kind of stayed the same a little bit this year. It's probably going to keep going though. Cigarette tax is obviously trending down. Garbage also. And your cable is up because again, that's that 25,000, that blue one at the top is the 25,000 I put back into general fund. So it's going to show a spike there. And then this is our same years, the 2020, 2021, 22, and then our proposed budget. It shows the revenue and expenditures, and it looks really good, except what I did was I left in the rollover because obviously from the years past, there's been a little bit of rollover. And then in 2021 and 22, you got the COVID money, the SLURF, I call it SLURF funds, it's State Local Recovery Act. So if you think about those 2 years, you had 200,000 each of those years coming in plus your rollover. So it's going to look like there was a very high revenue spike, but it really is not there. If that makes sense. I know it's hard to see, but I had it a different way and it just didn't show up really well. And I didn't want to look like I was trying to hide funds from you. There's no hiding here. And then if you see the proposed, you see the revenue and expenses. Your revenue and the proposed is kind of what we're going to be back down to, probably going down because that COVID money isn't there and your expenses are just going to go up. So you can see where eventually that revenue and those expenses are going to hit and start going backwards. You're eating into your rollover fund, basically. So what's happening. And that is all. That is it. It's my. So I just wanted to give a little bit of that before you get into the budget. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. If not, Linda, you may. Chairperson, you may.
So that was also the budget message to the orientation.
Yeah, unless there's direct questions, I can answer those.
Go into the general fund.
Oh, I'm sorry, and I'm just a couple of changes real quick, sorry. I looked down at my notes from, two changes. One is we found, to get cheaper insurance on the property that was purchased. Our insurance company is asking for some, some improvements to the property. So I am proposing that, we have right now in the general fund, 130,000 and unappropriated, which means it's, money wasn't gonna be spent. I put it in savings. And I'm asking that we move 30,000 of it up to the capital outlay where you have the 75,000 for the roof for the senior center, that we move the 30,000 up there. So it leaves it at 100,000. You also have 60,000 still left in contingency. So I'm asking for that. And then the accountant is asking, and with me, I am asking also, and I think it's more of a, we're going to do it. I'm telling you, we're going to put a collection fee line item in the sewer department under revenue and expenditures. So when we go to collections and we have that 30%, we have to show that somehow separate. So we have to show that in and out and an in. So it's almost like grant. It's going to be out in. It doesn't make a difference to your bottom dollar because they're taking 30%. We're collecting 30%. We have to show it as revenue, and then we're sending it over to the collections agency. So it's going to be in and out. So we'll probably do that. We will do that. Actually, she's going to make that change for your next meeting. We'll have a line item expenditure for revenue for sewer collection fee, and it'll be funded at about $1,000 each. So
Did you know that the first change?
the first change.
The sheet out for.
So in general,
$1,000.
yep. So in general fund under capital outlay under the requirements section under capital outlay. Let me go there. Wait. Let me go there. Yeah.
On page 3, are you looking at number 51?
Yeah,
Yeah.
51, the bottom of unappropriated where you have your savings amount, I put 130,000 in there, just try to save some money. So there's 130, I want to take that down to 100,000 and put 30 back up where it says capital outlay 75,000. So that would be 105.
Okay.
Okay, so
No, the 130 goes to 100. The unappropriated will be down to 100,
30,
which is more than you have. Nope, then the 75,000 under capital outlay goes to 105.
Taking 30 from unappropriated and dumping it into the.
Capital outlay, yeah. And it, yeah.
Okay.
I'm asking for that, yes. And then now
That's the plan.
that's the plan. That's all.
Okay. So do we want to go line by line like we did last, like we've been doing historically? Okay. So on resources general fund, line 1, available cash on hand. Proposed is 467,051. Forecast for this past year was 495,000. So we're going to be down a little bit then. Okay. Line 3, interest revenue, it's down to 2,000 from 5,800. COVID reimbursement funds, again, it's gone down to 0 because we're not going to get it anymore. Fireworks donation, we haven't gotten any fireworks donation.
It moved over to, it's going to be over in the
Okay.
tourism. So that line item will actually drop off and go away after
Right.
next year.
So,
Or the fireworks is, last year it was moved under Google Transit.
right, and
We-
this will cover that. when
Yeah.
we get to that.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
So next year, this will be gone off.
yeah, it'll be cleaned
It
up.
has to show for 3 years.
Yep.
Okay, line 6, miscellaneous revenue, we have 500. So, what's the miscellaneous revenue from?
That is the trunk or treat. That's the bottles and cans we're collecting.
Got you.
And actually, I'm thinking, let me think about this. We go up, we're gonna use by the end of the year. That actually might be a mistake on my part, but it'll be okay. We'll just show more revenue there.
Okay, so, line 7 is the transit tax revenue, tourism 30%. So 35,000 anticipated.
Mhm.
Okay, line 8, alcohol tax revenue is 30,000. That's pretty much running steady. Cigarette tax is 1,100. Garbage franchise revenues 14,000. Cable franchise revenue is 25,000. Rent revenue is 3,000. Hangar rent is 1,500. Are either of those potentially going to be raising? Is there any, I mean, is there a,
That's a good discussion council should have. Yeah.
is there a contract for? So,
There is a contract. So, so the senior center, the meals, however the meals, whoever does the meals from the Coos County,
Yeah.
Sebec or whatever they're called,
Yes.
they give 3,000 a year, which is that 3,000.
okay.
And they will not raise it. They said they're paying us more than anybody. And yeah, and they're not gonna raise it. I asked them last year. So that's about the only rent. I think the senior center once wrote us a check for like $300 and for the year, but but it's used all the time. And that's a conversation I need to have with council because the building needs some help.
And the hangar rent is, the contract's still lasting.
Yeah, they all pay, they're all supposed to pay 25 cents a square foot and
Okay.
we'll see.
Okay. License fees, revenue is 5,000. Okay.
What are these license fees?
Those are
Those are the business license and liquor license and sewer apps.
And that's the line item that is gonna change.
No, I'm not changing it. I was just alerting you that someday we probably should move those sewer apps over to the sewer revenue.
So license fees like business, so we don't have as many businesses, is that why?
You know, probably my biggest flaw is I'll budget conservatively just because I don't want to ever get in a jam. But we did really well this year because Tina sent out reminders, which she'll do again. But I think we also got a few new businesses and it was just up. And we also got a lot of sewer apps this year. So I'm just kind of being conservative in that.
Okay.
Any idea why just a few years back it was much close to double?
I have no idea. There was, I don't know. I couldn't speculate.
Yeah,
It's crazy. I wasn't gonna say I was not gonna say anything, but I have a feeling, yes.
okay. Electrical and building permit revenue is 0.
It moved to building community development.
Okay, Central Lincoln PUD franchise, 100%, 50,000.
Now,
That's the extra
explain the
25.
rationale behind,
That's,
because this is money you're taking away from basic service.
no, well, so the premise is that in 2015, the budget committee with council approved the budget, decided to put, it's an unrestricted franchise. So it's like all the other franchises that could all go in general fund. They decided to put 50% into streets and 50% into general fund. And so at this point, we have money in general fund to make that payment because you have all those SLUR funds, but those can't pay for the property. And so I wanted to be very, very clear for auditing for this, for the citizens, for the state, that money was not being used to pay a property payment. And so the other half, that 50% coming out of streets, that 25,000 will make that payment basically. And so I moved it because it's unrestricted, it can go from general fund. So I moved it into general fund and took it out of streets. It doesn't hurt the streets department as much. I mean, it's not hurting the street department in the long term.
In the long term, there are potholes.
Well, the potholes, that's a whole nother story, and that doesn't have anything to do with really, it's not going to be fixed with, that's a different subject. You can't pave a street. You can't pave a street on what we have in the street fund, and it takes more than 300,000 to pave a street if you're going to pave a whole street.
How much does it cost to fix potholes?
Well, if you do it right, it's going to cost a little bit, but they're gonna keep coming back, and if you don't do it right. So we just don't have the right base. We don't have the right, we don't have rollers. We don't have equipment. It's not getting tapped down. It's just going to get shoveled into a hole, and so it's going to keep getting bad.
I understand that. I just have a real concern with eliminating basic services. Taking money from basic services, bottom line stuff.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? Okay, next line, telephone franchise, 0.
Yeah, we don't get that anymore.
Marijuana tax revenue, 3,000. That sounds like it's holding. Planning grants, 0.
Because that went over to community development.
Okay, grant revenue is 300,000.
It's a placeholder, so that's in and out money that doesn't, there's grant revenue and then there's grant expenditure, and it's all at the same amount. So I could make it 6 million like I did in wastewater, and it doesn't mean anything for your budget.
Did the city get the 2 million for the earthquake? Did I hear that?
No, you got it. The fire department did.
We did. I
No.
also heard.
Oh, no,
rumor.
no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
If you had, this is where you need to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Happy dancing. We did.
I don't know where we'd use it, but maybe I should have applied.
Just because I'm curious.
Yeah.
Are you having grants?
When we get to community development, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Wolfenstein grant for beach maintenance. That's
Move to tourism.
okay. So transfer again from other funds. We have from wastewater effluent is 0. So total resources except taxes to be levied is 937,150. 151. Estimated taxes to be received 0. Taxes collected in year levied 0. So total resources $937 and $151. Okay. We got the in, yeah. Okay, general fund 01 requirements restrictions. So payroll, we have 75,000. Social Security and Medicare is 5,900. Workers' comp is 4,000. PERS is 6,500. Health insurance is 25,000. Have we made any effort to look at different options?
We, well, we're through, as far as health insurance?
Yeah.
No, we go through CIS and, which is what most cities do. And then we'll look at different options once all of the employees are at market rate. Once they're at market rate, then we can look at different options. But if we don't have employees at market rate, you're taking more money from them and they're not even at market rate, you're going to lose people.
The thing is I think there's different options that you can lower your income and still give your employees a decent health insurance. Over at the water district we had, I can't remember what it's called, but there was a pot of money that the district actually had that the employees could use for the copay up to a certain amount. If they reached that maximum amount, then they were going to have to pay their copay. If they didn't use it, it stayed with the district. So I think there are other options. The thing is, if you look at this, I mean, you've raised that $10,000 and you know, insurance isn't going to stay low. So it's just something that I think third year saying it needs to at least be investigated.
Yeah, and I do know that the state made legislative changes this year too, that there's something to do with the insurance and you can't do your own. It's weird. It's just they made a weird legislative move, but I do know that our accountant does these numbers. And I will say that if you'll notice in the past, we were budgeting less than we budgeted last year. What we plan to use is less because we have one less employee. But I will say that there is extra in there, and it's put in there for in case somebody does quit or somebody leaves, you can pay them out because you're going to owe all their vacation time and stuff. So you always have to have some extra money in there to do that. And for hiring.
Okay. Unemployment, 2,100. New payroll expenses, 0. So total administrative expense payroll, 118,500.
Melissa, I have a general question.
Mhm.
You explained this to me once before and I've already forgotten. Is this just a percentage of the payroll and you broke it out into the other categories, or is this
Yes.
all the payroll?
Yes, this is a percentage of mine and the utility billing clerk.
But just for the general fund,
Right,
because you allocate
right.
other parts of the payroll to the other.
Yes.
What
It could-
percentage is?
I gotta look at my budget message because I lose track of where the percentages are. City clerk was 70% in general fund and 30% wastewater, which is no longer, so that's a savings there. And then I'll go to my budget message. It's in there, I think.
Yeah, and just in general, I just kind of.
I think I get 50, it's 50 general, I think for me. And then 40 wastewater, 10 streets.
Okay.
And utility billing clerk, I think is more
it's
sewer. I think
70-30.
she's 70-30, 70 wastewater and 30 general. Yeah,
Because kind of a
Yeah.
suggestion. For the payroll, you probably don't need to go category anymore, you know, that it's just a percentage of all.
Right, yeah, for the payroll,
Yeah,
yeah.
and like I said, I don't do the numbers. Stephanie throws those in. So, because she knows how much they're gonna be for the year.
and you can just go on. But this is.
Especially the payroll. But I had to get my lecture in.
Yeah.
I'm there. I'll look into it.
So,
That's some thoughts I wanted to share about this section. Maybe I'm the one thinking it, I don't know. When I read that we were budgeted last year for 3 employees here at City Hall, and I guess part of the way through the year, we lost one of those employees. I don't know that there was any effort to fill that 3rd spot, and then this year, that spot is being budgeted out. I feel like if we got all these problems, we know that we have all these challenges ahead of us, that we shouldn't be eliminating that 3rd staff member, that we should be trying to budget for that and bring that in. We already, it says right there, we should anticipate reduced services. But we're already like, I hear city staff is overwhelmed. It takes time. We don't have enough people. I just prefer to see a 3rd staff member budgeted instead of the other way around.
We did try to fill this position and what we could afford to pay, we're not very, the recruiting is not easy. And I felt like if we had put somebody in there, I was going to spend more of my time trying to train them. And the reality is there's some things that need to be done in that job that I need somebody who can come in with a higher level of like initiative and look at the big picture and out of the box thinking and say, oh, you know, it'd be better for this.
You're
And
saying we can't afford to pay at the level.
yeah,
Okay.
I can't get the applicants. I can't get the caliber of applicants I need.
I mean,
There's only so much money. Yep,
And that's not.
170,000.
And that's not going
That's
to
it.
get, and that that's not going to change at this point.
I mean, Adam, to your point, yes, I would love to have somebody here. There is no doubt my job would be easier. And yes, I think that would be best, but as a budget officer and looking at the budget and the numbers and trying to do what's best for the city, I just felt like that was the better option.
Well, and bottom line for this year, you're fine with your payroll that you budgeted. Are you personally fine with that?
Yeah, I mean, we budgeted out the position. I'm worried that we'll never be able to budget it back in unless something changes, but
But as manager,
Yeah.
you're okay.
yes.
Was it- Or what, based on what you,
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's understood.
Yeah.
And to Adam's point, as long as it's understood, the service level could go down.
And the thing is if circumstances change where there is an influx of funds, that can change.
Or potentially if we all had the will to fill that spot. we could-
Yeah.
I mean, if
Is that the
others
same thing as the buckets you were showing us that?
No, I mean, you'd have to take it here in general fund. You'd have to find the money and move it up. But if you also, but if you look,
Or minimize.
don't-
right,
And
but if you look at materials and services, most of those line items have gone down, not up. And then the other thing you need to be very careful, if you move it out, so where I can't meet those and we're going over budget, we'll wind up in a supplemental budget position where we got to open up the budget because we've gone over. So you don't ever want to make yourself so tight that you're going to actually run yourself out of operating costs. To your point, I get it. Adam, I'm on your side too, but
Okay, so administrative expenses, materials and services, dues, travel and conference, that being increased to 7,000.
we're anticipating spending.
I think we are because we have a new council. There's some good training opportunities out there that really help.
LOC conference is what I was thinking. Counselor Pointer, if everybody, because it seems like our council is very, our council seems to be very active and to go to all the things, and it looked like all of them would want to go. So when you add that up, most cities 1 or 2 go, but if all of ours go, you're going to add that up. That's going to be quite a spendy conference.
For the expense.
It is very, in my opinion, LOC conference is the most beneficial conference. Yeah. And we may be able to get that grant again. I mean, we can also apply for that too. So
Okay, advertising fees, 3,000. Advertising and election, 1,500. Legal fees, 10,000. Electrical and building fees, where is that coming from?
that went to community development.
Because I want to say, wait a minute, 0? Okay. Audit and filing fees, 12,000. Contracted services, 5,300.
No, 53,000. That's the big one.
53,000.
Yeah, could you break out what these are about?
No.
Where are they from?
Putting me on the spot. Contracted services. So that is, it started, we put a lot of money in their last fiscal year because we're looking at possibly getting the software program to help with the sewer department, but we wisely decided we weren't going to do that, but we left the money in there. So if we used a consultant for other things, we could. And I can't remember now off the top of my head what we did with it, but there was some money used. It goes for, God, now I'm going blank and I knew this would happen to me today. Is it our, let me see, let me make sure it's not down there so I don't lie and people come and get me. Okay, so IT is a consultant that comes in and does our IT. We pay a monthly bill to that. I probably should go look at my budget message again. I think I had it in there. There's, I did budget more this year for, and I talked about it in the budget message for, a consultant to come in if you wanted to do any kind of levy or, election.
You have city, you have the city's
Accountant.
services and security.
There's, landscapers, there's, the pest control, there's the the paper and the toilet paper kind of stuff, but that might go under operating expenses though too, so. That does, Oregon linen, but, yeah,
It's just kind of a chunk.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like we see contracted services, you know, in every fund going down the line.
It is.
And it's one of the biggest numbers.
it is the biggest number
And
because
yeah,
if you have to use one, it's usually a lot of money.
Is it unreasonable to see some sort of breakdown of what maybe
Nope.
the biggest ends of those are?
Nope, I
It's
can't.
the city's account, that's the one who does your bills, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, so that,
I could take a picture.
yeah, so that's a monthly bill there. And then IT and then security.
Let me see if,
Yeah, I'm just interested in what the bigger ones are.
security is big.
Yeah.
Building.
Well, here I have the,
So,
you have the packet with the bills in it and for the meeting, I can, let's see.
yeah, the thing is, it went from 15,000 to 53. So if you're putting your accountant, whatever monthly, that in itself could very well be at least $12,000.
Yeah, she's, yep. Oh, we have engineering. So if engineering doesn't fall under like a specific, like they're working on a project or something, and our engineer will come out of there also.
Okay.
So, and he can be
Yeah.
And that's usually drier.
So
dire, yeah,
you're talking about engineer, not for waste.
right. It's just something, or, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I know this last year you didn't use a lot of it.
No, and we don't intend to, again,
Yeah.
the whole thought is not to use what's in there, but if you have it to use it, it's better than opening up the budget or going over a line.
Okay, next line is repairs and maintenance administration, 2,000. Insurance is 15,000. Telephone is 3,500. Postage, 2,747. Yes, it's going up.
Yeah.
Operating supplies increased to 20,000.
Well, it's down from last budget year.
How's that different than the contracted services? Like you said, toilet paper.
That's the operating, so that's our Oregon, that's our toilet paper, the pens, the pencils, the markers, the
So that's-
ink, printer, paper, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, fuel for city vehicles is 1,500.
Yeah, and just a note on that so that you're all aware, it goes back to wages and employment, and you have a loyal employee base, very loyal. And so when we use our cars, like for the accounting or the banking once a week, we use our own cars. We don't use the city vehicle. We don't reimburse for the gas either. And so if you think about that, you have some employees that are really, they're using their own funds to do things to help out. I mean, this isn't, they could be, Tina and I could be reimbursing every week and we don't. We use our own gas, we use our own vehicle. So there's where you're saving money with that vehicle too.
Repairs and maintenance of the vehicle, 1,500. Administrative costs, 0. Municipal court and judge.
So
0.
administrative cost is something that's going away, right?
Yes, I don't even know what that was supposed to be.
I wonder if that was part of the municipal court and judge.
It might have been, it probably went together.
Okay, and that should be dropping off
Next year.
Next year. Miscellaneous expensive, 3,000. New planning and administration,
That's over in community development.
code enforcement,
So I have a
That's
real
over there.
problem with this. Zero, no abatement, no flood enforcement,
Have noted,
but we do. We have money in the budget here in a lot of different places. That is a key critical function for this. We need to start doing coding.
I thought the planning.
Yep, does some of it. Yep. He's only here half-time, part-time, but yes, he does a lot of the code enforcement.
Do you do any of it as well,
Do any of it?
of that code enforcement?
No, I oversee what he does and I talk about it with him and we talk about what we're doing. But I don't physically write letters. He does.
Yeah, but that's still zero. I mean, what does that say?
I mean,
What does that say for, say, we don't wanna do code enforcement, you know? And I can guarantee you,
Yeah.
I guess my question would be what
Yeah.
level of code enforcement? I mean, writing letters is about all we can do right now. I mean,
start.
when that's what we do. We write letters.
By all the problems, start writing letters. Talk to the consultant.
And I think that's a,
Consultant, they used to do it. You know, California has things like they used to do, receiverships. I don't know if we're going to do that or not. But we really need to start doing something, carrying out the budget every year. I think it's, I guess it's pretty clear.
I think that's a conversation for council. Moving forward with goals.
No,
And the thing is what Mark is saying, if there's no funding.
right, so what we do this.
Right.
So, I mean, the council is saying we're gonna do code enforcement, but then we have to take it from something.
Now, and I seem to remember in your new campaign, a lot of you campaigned on code enforcement. And I'm seeing a zero figure in the budget, so that to me is really not acceptable.
I can see no acceptable to me either.
If it was gonna be in a budget, it would actually be moved over to community development as a line item there, but it would also just be sucked up as part of the community development operations.
This should show we're doing something.
Yeah, I mean,
I
to
agree.
even
Yeah.
that is a
Just-
small number says to the public and to ourselves that we're trying.
Right, I mean, you can put, I think what Mark is saying is we can put it under community development. And then put maybe 500 or 100, start out with 100, something. That,
And
It
here's,
shows we're
here's,
making progress.
here's a perfect example of what's happening. 3 years ago, this guy said, I'm gonna put up a pole barn. The city tried to do code enforcement and said, no, you can't put up that pole barn. So he turns around, he comes to the planning commission and says, hey, can I have a variance to put up this pole barn? Planning commission says, no, you can't do that. That pole barn today is still sitting there. And that's what I mean. People have learned in the city, if I don't get my way with the city, I just do it.
We're dealing with that right now on another property.
Yes, well, I could probably mention numerous,
Right.
something like that.
Yeah.
We all know it, and unfortunately, not everybody is as conscientious as the group of people who are putting in time on the committee and the council and stuff like that, to where, start waking them up, timing, whatever. But that's just my personal thought. And this is really a budget committee meeting. I'm just saying that this number of 0, I think is,
I think when you get to the community development fund, you can look at that and there is money there. I put 50,000 in contingency and there's an unappropriated at 20,000. So there is money to put a line item and do that with when you get to that fund.
Yeah. It's code enforcement is that's one of my big things too. I don't want to look at some of the stuff we have around this.
okay, let's see if we can get through at least general.
Sorry, but-
Before we're pushed out, so, okay, Lakeside.
all my hot buttons are gone.
Unless you get Lakeside, I think it's Lakeside COVID relief expenses. So, okay. Next line is grant expensive, 300,000. Again, that's a holding place.
It's a holding, yeah, placeholder.
Wolfenstein Family Grant, Beach, that's in, where do we put that? The trans-
It's in tourism fund, but
Tourism
it's not the family grant. It's just Wolfie Beach.
Okay, building maintenance, 4,000. Lakeside Airport, 0.
It was moved to wastewater.
Total administrative expensive materials and services, 464,747. Total administrative expensive, 583,247. Where we have contributions is 0. Tourism promotion, Wolfie Beach, event expenses, 4th of July, so because all of that moved to.
Yep.
So loan interest, 18,207. Debt service principal, 20,697. Capital outlay, total debt service is 38,904. Capital outlay, we changed to 105,000.
That's also, that's fine too. I understand a big chunk of that money is maintenance on the roof of the building behind us. And my question is like, that's a huge number. No one wants to put the seniors at any sort of risk. But can we spend that money and put them in, for instance, the Lions Hall, and not continue to dump money into this 100-year-old building behind us? I mean, is that really a
Again,
thinking?
you got to remember you're a budget committee and those are big picture items for the council. So making philosophical decisions. I mean, you can say you want to cut the budget. You can say you don't want to have 75,000 in there. You want to have a certain amount, but the decision of whether to fund a senior center or to not have it operate is that's a council decision.
All right. It's a huge
Do
chunk of
you
money.
see what I'm trying to say? I
No,
mean, you're
I
getting into the
understand.
philosophical, yeah, you can cut the budget, you can suggest it and
That's what I'm saying. As soon as they open up that roof.
Okay, next one is total capital outlay, again, $105,000. Transfer to other funds, transfer to community development, 50,000. Transfer to tourism is 0. Total transfers, 50,000. Operating contingency is 60,000. Ending balance, prior years. Unappropriated ending, fund balance is 100,000. Total requirements, 937,950. Okay. So we will do the next meeting will be May 18th, 2023 at 5 p.m. You're back. Yeah.